这一波，让 CFO 人全员收掉。
差了一个位置，又是第三个了，哎呀！
然后是拿了一个搭手，开始持续的追击。现在的话，条子上的 triple，
这一波手上换了一个治愈，多你一个治愈，最后是被点输了。
这个红魔的一个推，拿着出双盲月效果把小林给推了回去。
Welcome, everybody, back to the PCS Summer Split Playoffs. Tonight is the night many of you have been waiting for. We have got ourselves into the upper bracket finals. But before we delve too deep into the details, I want to go ahead and send a special shout out to our sponsors on the split. It is, of course, CTBC Bank and China Airlines for helping make this little shindig happen. Hey, everybody, I am Devin Pyrotechnics Young. I'm joined on this broadcast by none other than Frank Nightstar Peng. And don't get too concerned. He may be looking a little stiff there, but he is just as ready to go as I am. How you doing tonight, Nightstar?
I'm really excited, and hopefully my internet also holds out, because that's what right so far. But coming into tonight, we will finally, at long last, our first Worlds team coming over to NA. You know, it's happy right in our backyard, Pyra.
They're making the trek, absolutely. I can't wait to see which of our teams, of course, if you haven't been keeping up, we'll fill you in. Tonight is a battle of the banks between CTBC Flying Oyster and Mega Bank Beyond Gaming. Perhaps one of the biggest and most pleasant surprises of our playoffs thus far, the fact that these two teams seeded 4th and 6th are now one best-of-5 series away from making that qualification with a second chance for the person who loses. For the team that loses, they will be able to go through into the lower brackets. Let's take a look at our brackets, how things have gone so far, to explain how we got here, because honestly, some of those games in the upper were big surprise, big eye-openers. I had J-Team going all the way, but I was very clearly wrong. Well, Beyond Gaming haven't just beaten them. They also beat Deep Cross. They're playing against CFO. They're looking to try and stomp through the entire J-Team multiverse, Nightstar.
For BYG, this would be one of the most remarkable plays we've ever had, because it is a 6th seed. However, odds are stacked against them, at least from our prediction standpoint. We've got 4 out of 5 of us going for CFO, and for good reason. It feels like CFO have been ramping up match after match, whereas Beyond Gaming, it does like the last 2 series were slight anomalies, but this is of course the real time.
Yeah, this is the big one right now, and I think Hysteric's shown a little bit of faith for Beyond Gaming. I do respect it all the same. Also trying to make a play. We've been pretty close in the prediction score thus far, but for CFO, they've definitely ramped up over the course of the split, and it was when they finally settled on their bot lane. Shun is here to stay, is what they declared, and he has been absolutely killing it. One of the strongest bot lanes in the entire PCS, and he's always the one picking up all of the gold in the early game. This is a team that thrives in the laning phase, and he crushes it against just about everybody.
Yeah, Shun during the regular split was absolutely unreal. However, in the playoffs, he has been much more tempered. I'm not sure it's just because CFO have tempered their lane aggression in general, or it's just because, well, you know, when you're accounting for regular season stats, you're also including those games where you did have a bit of a pub stomp in a couple of those situations.
And that has happened against a lot of teams, but not as much against the squad they're facing off against tonight. Mega Bank Beyond Gaming, of course, they also had been making a couple of roster changes, but far less impactful, I would think. Lee Kai has been the guy to stay for a time now, and this squad has definitely pulled off some upsets, definitely pulled off some surprises over the course of the regular split as well. I can't remember how many times we were saying we didn't like this draft, we didn't like this early game from this team, but they came back into it. They are the kings of the comeback. in my opinion, Nightstar. And these two teams don't have a whole lot of footage on each other when you think about it. They've never met in postseason. And as they go up against each other now, the all-time head-to-head in the Battle of the Banks is a mere 4 games, but 3 of them in favor of Beyond.
Yeah, for the most part, it does feel like Beyond Gaming have had their number. And unfortunately, though, the most recent game wasn't much in favor of CFO. Perhaps that is a recipe for success. The highlight matchup will be in that top lane. Of course, Rest has had a couple more games than Lee Kai. And for the most part, I feel like Lee Kai, you can see all around the damage numbers. It's not that hot because that's not really the role he functions in for this team. Where Rest, he is very much a big carry. He does have to take on a good chunk of the damage load. And that reflects in the fact that Shun is our lowest damage doing AD carry in our league. And it's in due part, the Rest doing a lot more than what any other top laner should.
It's crazy to think that that's actually the way the stat works, but it breaks down as we get into picks and bans for our game 1. We are still on patch 12.14, reminding everybody, yes, we have been on this patch the whole time, so things may be a little different than over in the LCK or LPL, which you can coincidentally also be checking out around this time. Ari, Silas, Sivir all banned away, which leaves the door open for Mission to first pick the Taliyah, something we did expect to see, at least in some instances here, especially with that Azir banned out.
Azir being one Beyond Gaming is probably warranted given how dominant Mission has looked. However, not still one of those champs that he can get punished in, and Taliyah is definitely another one of the champs that can be punished during the lane phase. So look for Husha to try and attack Mission early, but they'll go ahead, lock in the Zeri pick here. Zeri Yuumi available. Really one of those enchanter players, but perhaps we do see that be a stable particular series.
Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting that Kino has been like the quintessential hard engage support to the point where he plays even more Leona games than Nautilus, speaking of, on the board now for Koala. Koala has been more flexible, but he's liked the Nautilus at times. And woo boy, Shun's at the gates with a Draven pick off the board. We saw this once already in the playoffs, and he crushed it.
Draven locked in right from the get-go. Game number 1. We're in for it, dude. As this will be all about this bot with the Nautilus Draven. CFO will be looking to play towards that lane, no doubt about it. And for BYG, this is an extremely risky composition. You look at the Zeri Orianna, a lot of scaling, but the thing is, if Draven gets that, there's no scaling for this composition.
Yeah, this is going to lean so heavily on how that bottom lane goes. The Yuumi being banned out, it does say that they don't want to give the opportunity for the Zooms to become an in today. I do also like the Renekton ban out against Rest. That has been a big one for him of late. The Gnar is probably still going to be available. PCS does love this champion despite the nerfs. Sejuani banned as well, so the focus shifting in that top side. Oh boy, Nightstar, I can't help but think that CFO came in throwing the gauntlet down and said, all right, we're just going to wreck your day and not let you get into the late game where we know you thrive. Beyond are going to have to answer for it.
Yeah, this will be a very difficult first test. They also go ahead and ban away the Fiora. Lee Kai will own last pick if they choose to do so, and it should, given that have the option to hold on to it all the way until the end, and this should be a support pick. I actually was sort of expecting the set to come out, but the Leona would also fit the...
Yeah, set support, of course, being the thing that Kino really pioneered in this league. It's been a little while since we've seen it, more of a spring split staple. All the same, I do like it out of him. I think it could potentially set up a kill lane, kill pressure, but they stick to the gun, stick to tried and true. For CFO, also sticking to Gemini's comfort zone with the Viego lock into the Aatrox. We are going all in today.
does leave Nar still available here, and I think that's probably what they would slot in. There's Jace, definitely a young pick here, and Lee Kai we haven't really seen a whole lot.
There we go.
Makes a lot more sense. Again, a lot of team firepower here, going for something like the Camille, so that makes a lot more sense in this regard, and you're able to just target a specific target or a specific champion, and this is most likely going to be Shun.
Does make a lot of sense. Protection, they'll have to have it on there. I'm expecting Mission to be making a lot of trips down to the bottom once he gets access to his Weaver's Wall. Also, we'll look for Gemini to try and be aggressive early, too. You know, we talk about CFO and their early game prowess, what they like to do in the laning phase. Well, for Beyond, Usha is Beyond's early game. And he's on Wukong, a champion he's played far more than any other this split. So he will be relied on pretty heavily as this early game goes on. And I think that it seems the game plan for Beyond Gaming, it doesn't really waver from draft to draft, Nightstar. They just want to outlive and outlast. That's where they found their most success.
This is very much a composition that's going to be reliant on skilling. So, for CFO, one of their issues has been taking the lane lead and then really doubling down on them, using them to just constantly force map plays. And that's been a bit of a problem for them as the game progresses after accumulating such a lead. However, in this game, they will be put to the test to a certain degree because of how much skilling is on BYG. If it does get to 25 minutes, do look for the game script to possibly flip.
Well, that is the timer we're going to have to be watching for, but for right now, start your game clocks, everybody, because we are onto the Rift for our first game in this best-of-5 series. The Battle of the Banks finally hits the postseason, and one of these two squads is going to cash in for a trip to Worlds.
Pretty bold invade, looking, and really trying to bait it out.
I like it.
Of course, level 1, in game number 1, if anything spicy does happen, that really sets the tone for the entire series, because that one play could just set you behind 0-1 right off the bat in the best of 5. BYG, again, their composition a lot more scale heavy. That is not something they want to give up at the onset of the game.
Yeah, playing it safe, and of course CFO playing it bold, going big or going home. And you got to think back to when we saw this from Shun before. His only other Draven game was in game 1 of that series against PSG Talon, which was an absolute banger the other week. And on that Draven, he popped off, man. 13 kills, 1 death. And I don't want to say he made Unified look like a chump, but he certainly crushed that lane pretty hard with Koala on an Ashe support.
And Koala having counter pick in this series might be a theme, especially over on red side. That is traditionally where they really hold the pick for Koala. And this time, okay,
the engage already happens. They're going in. And yeah, look at the damage they're already dealing onto the Zeri. There's not a whole lot they can do, but they turn it back onto Nautilus, and that's going to force the pushback. All right, so for now, we already getting into the action, but it is probably just a brief response.
Yeah, of course, we're going to just try and hard force a lot of action down in this bottom lane, given that, you know, you've got the Draven. And against Zeri, Zeri a whole lot in lane presence and into something like the Draven. And it's all about the scaling when it comes to Zeri. And even though Zeri can have those big moments in these team fights, I'm not sure if that's be there for Wako, because of the fact he is, where he does have a Leona support. So the ceiling is going to be a little bit lower than what we would expect from a typical Zeri game. So that would be something to keep track of, as Usha looks like he's the one getting track of.
Yeah, I was about to say, I would not put it past Gemini to try and set up that play 3v3. As CFO are working on a game clock, working on a timer. they're going to go ahead and let this go, and the ward gets cleared. Critical by Husha. And that's just going to be the reset for now. But yeah, you got to keep your eye all across the map. There can be kills in any solo lane, any time, anywhere, it seems.
Especially with the quality of laner coming in from CFO, the longer these lane phases do go, it should look better and better for them. And the most important factor will be the forward percentage of Husha, instrumental in his swaddle floats in the lane phase, and for Gemini, it's about just making it able to prevent Husha from being able to keep track of his or influence his lanes.
Exactly. I think you were talking about this too when we were setting up for our pregame, how it's such a big development that Beyond were able to have high forward percentages when they have had success in the past against teams like CFO that are hyper aggressive early. They can't shut all the lanes down.
Yeah. That's been sort of their approach where, hey, we know Husha is going to try and play, but we can play around our jungler in this instance. However, in this particular game, because of how much pressure is really asserted by having Draven Nautilus to a Zeri lane, it does make the map a little bit lopsided. Now, Husha, if he wants to find an aggressive, it's going to be invades towards that top half of the map rather than that bottom, and if that happens, you do force the Zeri out on an island, as you know, will try and stop the back and will be successful in that regard. Or even if you compare the itemization, like Doran's Blade to a Vamp Scepter advantage for Wako, yes, you technically have the better buy, but when Draven presses Q, it kind of throws that to the wayside.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then, of course, you know, Stand Aside as well throws the Zeri to the wayside. So you've got to be careful. You have to respect that in the bot lane. When you're playing Zeri, you want to play a little bit for the late game, which is why the Leona was a bit of an interesting choice, I think. But we do want to check in elsewhere. We did compare our top laners. We talked about the difference between these two. Well, so far, Rest definitely getting the better of Lee Kai, as was to be expected. But at least with him backing, getting healthy, the wave will crash into him, and he's able to pick it up. So Lee Kai doing what he can to, at the very least, lose this lane gracefully, not give the Aatrox an opener. I think that makes a lot of sense. Husha doesn't tend to spend a lot of time around the top side, and he's going to have his work cut out for him, at least in the bot, probably in the mid as well. But another reason you go for an Orianna on Minji, right? Especially with this roam coming up now for the Nautilus.
Yeah, roam coming in, just a lot of focus from Koala into mid lane, making sure Mission is able to hold on or not get ganged. But yeah, should be now the attention turned to the drain. They even bring Rest on, so this is a great move for them, and looks like CFO off to a great start.
So far, so good, and we will get the Dragon secured by CFO. Objectives have definitely been solid for them this side of the map. I mean, looking at the way that this team actually plays around the objectives, because they're such dominant laners, they are able to exert a lot of pressure on the map, and as a result, they're actually the best team in the league for securing that first Drake. They get it more than 2/3 of the time just across the entire league, and the only objective that they really get that they really lose out in terms of how Beyond does versus them is really the Herald. And I think that's just a testament to how much they actually bring down the side of Lee Kai into the mid lane, into other parts of the map, because Lee Kai doesn't really get a whole lot of help from his jungler. He has to end up coming to him. So as we keep watching this game, CFO building these short leads, they've still been held killless. That's the important thing. So, Beyond, they just need to not give up unnecessary deaths, let the Draven cash in on the stacks, and they have that timer to work with. We are keeping our eyes on the game clock. It'll be a while before we get to that 25-minute mark and the scaling starts to kick in. But so far, Beyond have done a good job of not giving up too much ground. As we just let the early game phase play out after a couple nice attempts from the side of CFO to get a little bit of shenaniganery going on. They didn't hard commit to anything, not even the level 1. And they will look to open up onto Herald. This is started by Gemini. And in full vision, But Beyond Gaming, not in a position to necessarily contest, even with 3 members nearby. They know it can be matched pressure-wise. They don't want to start feeding any kills to the likes of an Aatrox or a Viego. That's going to be secured up. First Herald going the way of CTBC Flying Oyster as well. So they are continuing their trend of controlling objectives across the map. Again, Beyond are playing to that scaling game. Got to be careful not to give up too much ground. I am a little bit aware that we are currently having a handful of technical issues on the end for Nightstar, possibly with me as well. So thank you all for bearing with us as we try to get everything up and running smoothly. I'll keep narrating the action as we go. We got the Wukong hanging out in that brush. Husha looking to make a play, but the game sense is tingling here. You have to think now on the ward before it expires. Not bad. But we'll see if the all-in from Lee Kai can go anywhere. No, he doesn't have 6 just yet to work with. He's not going to be able to fully commit to that Hextech ultimatum. Looks like we got you back, Nightstar.
I think we're improving. I'm not sure. We'll have to take it as it goes.
Sound good to me.
As it's going to be Herald down into bot lane. This is to be expected, right? Because we have the Draven. And over on the top side, Rest is doing well enough for himself. That's definitely not a problem for him in this matchup. Again, Lee Kai has been more of a stabilizing top lane, where he just makes sure he tries to lose gracefully, and it's all about just having better impact in these team fights. We'll see how well he's able to execute around this Camille. Of course, last year he was very well known for his Camille. That was his most played champion, and the tandem plays he had with G-Mian were definitely really exciting to watch. Okay, that's actually a blue buff going to Wukong.
I think that was a strength, and it is, as the Whirling Death gets popped by Shun to just try and cut that wave, not give Wako any plates early on. So, as we are 10 minutes into the game, the fact that Beyond have still not given up a death, not a bad sign for this team, not a bad look, but they are ceding ground, and they may have that streak broken here as the dive's getting set up. No flash from Lee Kai, does have an ultimatum, and he knows this is happening. At least he knows that the Talia is around, but he's able to start pushing things back, waiting for that next wave. Rest will be looking to set it up.
It doesn't look like it will be a dive, but we have now seen Mission start looking towards these side lanes. Has the ultimate available, so you know he very much could pull the trigger at any moment. And this is actually really interesting, because Mission actually goes and takes the wolves. So he's hiding himself on the map and just trying to conceal where he is, not showing in the mid lane. And that extra time, you know, I'm not sure how well it pays off, but now it will be a lot of attention brought down to this second dragon.
Not a bad opener here from Beyond Gaming. They gotta be careful not to get sandwiched as they look to back off. Husha taking a little bit of poke damage, and ooh, the right Wukong gets shoved seismically by Mission. Really good guess on that one, and it opens up the opportunity to take another Drake as they get chased away. CFO say nice leash, thank you.
CFO, they get to the party second, but it ends up paying off for them with the extra health bars. Allows them to shoo Husha off the objective. And Beyond Gaming are one of those teams that they don't like contesting for that first dragon, and second dragon is really contingent on how they feel about their power spikes. Usually when they have a more mid-game centric composition, they will opt to take those fights, especially when you have Husha on this Wukong. However, in this particular composition, right, there's a big difference between Draven and Zeri, and also the Talia and Orianna, so it makes a lot of sense for them to just go ahead and concede that. And now we are going to have that first mythic being completed by Gemini and Mission, so a big power spike here for CFO.
Yeah, although you have to keep in mind the first top buy also comes in for Leakai, so he's actually been able to do that just off the back, and got a dragon to fight for here. Not going to go all in for it. Objectives still well controlled by CFO, as they have the ability to just fight better than Beyond. Beyond know it. Back the way they've given up Herald and 2 dragons already, but not a single death. And the gold lead, it's only 2,000 Nightstar. Beyond have got to be feeling pretty good about themselves overall.
2,000 gold with this sort of composition has to be at least par for the course, right? Because of the existence of the Draven, and also still the side lane pressure coming in from Mission on this Talia pick. So far, it's just a lot of shoving, right? And it's prevented BYG from really even coming close to playing their typical playstyle, which is super far forward, allow Husha to invade, get vision control in the enemy jungle, and then be able to play super freely. And now it's actually the side of BYG that's are getting real pressured in their own jungle. So their strategy is really getting turned on its head, and that gives more airspace to now CFO turn their attention towards this second Rift Herald, which should result in more gold into Shun.
Yeah. Gonna go ahead and pick that one up. Secure. Gemini crushes, or grabs the eye, I should say, as they now get the lane swap on, rotating top. Leakai knows that he's gonna back away, and I think this is gonna be first brick, as they should be able to shove on before any result can happen. Leakai's actually gonna stick around, and so is Husha.
Could be a lot of top action about to happen here. Recall coming in from Orianna, doesn't have the teleport, so won't be able to join back up in his top side. It's a very possible 3v3, and if this is a 3v3, CFO, if they can just snag that first kill, it doesn't really matter what happens afterwards.
Yeah, I think they know that they can get this first tower. Beyond don't want to give them anything extra on top of that, so they will extend the gold lead. It's at about 3,000 now. All that said, Beyond have played very, very smart at respecting the power spikes where this team can be. Leakai actually cutting off the Herald. Oh, I don't think he's going to get in time. There we go. He finds the glowing weak spot in the back, like any good video game player.
Both of the side lane tier 1s do fall, though. So that is a big pickup coming in from CFO, and they extend their gold lead ever so slightly, now out to 3K. The big question will be this next dragon, right? Because it is coming up in a minute. And for BYG, they do have their first mythic on the board, but at even mythics, it is still going to be very difficult for them to contest. However, they're sort of put in a position where it feels like they do need to contest, and that is definitely the dangerous part, as it is going to be Ocean Soul on the map, and this does mean there's a lot more bushes to play around with. The vision denial will be even more important here, and it will get really scary as the game progresses if they lose this dragon, because it makes it very difficult for them to even wander out onto the map.
Oh yeah, and I do think that the Ocean Soul, as the game gets a little bit later, CFO, it's not, you know, the big combat stats, but the regen is good if you want to try and keep yourself alive in these fights. It can definitely help out a lot if they end up in these extended engages, which could possibly happen. Death Brush, though, is warded off, pushed away. They get the teleport in from Rest, and now the Dragon's being started by Megabank Beyond Gaming here. We'll see if they can get this in time, or if it's going to be CFO going up to Soul Point. As the 5v5's in, Rest over the wall. They get the hook, they manage to land it on to Minji, and he gets bursted. That's first blood at 17.5 minutes, and they will be able to pick up 2, so not only does the Draven cash in, he does it again, and they take Kino out to boot. CFO opening up with the damage.
Oh.
And the Draven's on the board, Nightstar.
What a big pick there, coming in from Hua, lands the hook onto Minji of all targets. And a key component of that team fight from the side of BYG, being able to land the hook and follow up with the ultimate means Minji is unable to find the ultimate of his own to turn that fight around. That means double cash in for the Draven. He's got a massive purchase waiting for him home base. I cannot wait to see what this purchase will be. We get to see the replay. It's going to be Claw with the hook, lands straight onto Minji. Minji's positioning not exactly great.
What a great setup.
In that instance, but once he goes down, there's really nothing left for the side of BYG to stand on. No ground left because you don't have really a good frontline tank in this instance because Kino also got CC'd in that sequence of events as we get a full collector completed along with the BF sword. This is a very strong Draven.
Oh boy. Yeah, that just made Beyond's life a little bit harder there. And yeah, I was going to say, Nightstar, of course, they didn't have any ground to stand on because it was all worked. Mission definitely helped out a lot in the setup. I really want to give Koala credit, though. This is why the Nautilus is so heavily contested in this league. His Mission respects the Lee Kai all in, flashes back and away. Husha, Kino, they will walk away a little disappointed, and the pressure's on for this Beyond Gaming team now. As the Draven got a couple of kills, got accelerated. They need to buy more time. We said it was 25 minutes, but we're still 5 away from that, and I kind of feel like CFO are going to have a little bit more time to work with there.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it. As they have a massive gold lead, and you already look at the itemization coming in from Mission. We were so critical about Mission's itemization in the PSG series. It took him forever to actually build the stopwatch, and that just led to him getting picked off time and time again. This time around, he's gone for a second item, Banshee's Veil. This really just consolidates their lead because it's so difficult for the side of BYG to break that veil. It's going to take a lot of effort, whether it's the Electro Laser has to land or it's going to take the ball to come out from Minji to be able to pop that veil. So really, as long as you're positioning safely, then you're pretty much able to dodge out on any of the big CCs coming in from BYG, and that's all they have to try and force a pick.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they're not presenting a whole lot of weakness here and using the leverage they have from their strong early game and the way their composition works. This is one of the reasons we love to watch CFO, because they just understand the way that they like to play League of Legends, and it works out. More often than not here, in this Battle of the Banks, they definitely look to improve their overall head-to-head record, especially considering the winner of this series goes to Worlds. As a reminder, on Soul Point, 21 minutes on the game clock. We've got another Dragon coming up in about 1:45. That's going to be huge, and it's something that Beyond cannot afford to give up. An early Soul like that. But it will not be easy. They're going to need to be in great positioning. They're going to need to find a flank with Lee Kai. They're going to need to find a great Cyclone from Husha. And Minji's probably going to have to hit one of those 4,000 elo shockwaves.
Yeah, this shockwave has to be absolutely massive, and there's still that Wombo potential, right? You layer the Cyclone straight into the shockwave, and you might be able to just straight up delete 2 or 3 members on the side of CFO. However, right, it's still, you know, that's the dream scenario, and there's a reason why it is called a dream scenario, not realistic, because it's truly going to be difficult for them to find that, as Shun is kind of out on his own.
Whoa. Well, that looks like a dream scenario there, but he's still able to stay alive for now. Pops the stopwatch he just bought. Which clutch timing there. Finally gets shut down, but will Beyond live to tell the tale. They pull 2 back on the Talia, immediately deleting Husha and Tito off the map, and boom! Wako falls as well, despite the fact that they lost their bot laner in the start of it. Beyond are going to get cleaned up by CFO. Only Minji limps away. Woo! I hope that kill was worth it.
It's really understandable why the side of BYG go for that play, but CFO are well prepared. They're just so far ahead. Even with the loss of their Draven, it doesn't matter. They have more than enough stats all across the board. They have such large, they have a level advantage all across the board as well. So that's extra gold value there in that fight. So CFO, they lose their 80 carry, still win the fight, and they pretty much locked the game down here as They actually turn around for Baron. That might give BYG the ability to stall things out just a little more. And this is a great pick, though. Coming in from BYG, landing that stun onto Shun, and it almost was an insta-deletion. And if that happened, that might have changed things ever so slightly. Whew. But they weren't able to instantly delete him. So, you know,
buying time too.
Yeah.
Okay, CFO, they back out of this one. We're going to have a proper Dragon Dance. But yeah, that fight, that was great. And I really just want to call attention to Mission's seismic shove because that made all the difference. He picks up some kills in that. So, again, we start to see the Taliyah damage dealer and the veteran status of this mid laner. One of our most decorated in the PCS and even the LMS before it. Mission has definitely stepped it up after, I think, some well-earned critique in the way that he was playing and itemizing in previous series. They are going to keep flipping on the dragon, but CFO used the opportunity to actually send Rest back. Doesn't have TP. They actually got the inner tower, and the wave is crashing. Beyond have to commit to this, but they're getting cold feet, Nightstar. They're leaving it at 5,000 hit points, trying to use the brush to their advantage. Rest sees that there was a Wukong clone. They have to know that information's there, and as the reset happens, CFO are just going to come in and say, all right, if you're not going to take this, we are going to force your hand. Chasing Beyond out of the pit. They're going to use the Weaver's Wall, and it cuts off everybody. But Kino, he's isolated. He pops his ultimate. They look for the pickup onto Shun. The dive goes into the back, but immediately the attention is turned as Mission takes down Kino in the fight. Husha tries for the knockup, and let's see, as the dragon goes down, they still manage to find an opener, find a fight, but Rest is just too darn big. Gemini looking at Wako in the backline, turns back to Husha. Koala gets that hook, the setup, they may lose, it doesn't matter. They still manage to turn this into a 2v2 as Beyond Gaming split the party here. They will be able to get away thanks to the Zeri's ability to hop those walls. Oh, but for how long? There's really no base to fall back to as they just have so many towers already gone. Gemini can't quite do it. Prey Stutter from Wako. All the same, despite the even trade in fight, the soul goes over to CFO.
And you can see how the soul actually changes the scope of that play, because if BYG aren't able to one-shot you, the staying power in this composition is really nuts. You have so much healing coming in from the Draven, you have so much healing coming in from this Aatrox, and because of how far ahead they are, even Gemini is going to heal a ton of HP in these fights. So now you're forced to try and build some of that heal cut, and they are trying to get it, as we see the Executioner's Calling built up onto Husha, but they are just so far behind. If you invest extra gold in trying to slow down the healing, you also miss out on just damage that you need to finish off a kill. And right now, Wako is just too far away from that Infinity Edge, which he needs to be able to start turning these fights. Not quite online yet, and Minji, along with his 2 items, Archangel's a very low damage second item here. It's really just for the fastest power spike, because you understand they needed to have as much power as possible for that last dragon fight, and unfortunately it doesn't go their way. Now this is over a 10k gold lead.
Yeah, and use the Weaver's Wall to cut Likai off. They yoink him in. Koala finds the damage. They do pop that Solar Flare.
That's a bounce
the seismic shove. Another great one from Mission. Should cashes in on that. And here we go. Looking for the Viego setup. Gemini. Little speedy boy with that DMP. They'll just keep on moving straight into the base with the numbers advantage. Likai can't flank if he's not off the fountain.
Yep.
So CFO know exactly what they need to do, and they just throw their weight and their wallets at Beyond Gaming.
Looks like this first game might just be a wraps sooner rather than later. CFO?
Could be. Not going to push their advantages too far here. They're going to back away. Broken into the base already, Nightstar. So much pressure. That time clock that we talked about, the 25-minute, that's definitely been extended significantly. CFO have bought a lot of time for themselves. And here is going to be the
Hail
teleport
Mary
flank. Beyond are going to try to bring this game back in their favor, and CFO don't know this is happening. They have to know the
Ultimates
timing is
are
available,
available.
though. As they look to
Likai
chase them
spotted.
off, try to flank the flankers. It looks like Likai going in, finding the ultimatum onto Shun, and into the back goes Husha, looking for that knockup. Shun's out of there. However, they do already take the monkey out. Let's see if they can do more with this one. So much workaround to cut off the rest of Beyond Gaming. Kino's going to
Wako
fall
do it.
as Rest keeps Wako and Likai locked up. Wako a little isolated from the team. And they are going to try and keep them at bay, but it's a 1-for-2 trade nonetheless. Nightstar CFO still with the numbers advantage.
Right, but it was a really good engage coming in from Likai going straight onto Shun, and the
Gemini.
follow-up was there. That was important as Wako is going to have his backstop, and now the chase just might be on here as Wako, he might just have to go ahead and
try to go for the
execute.
execute.
That's going to be a big loss for them as he also
There we go.
loses his shield bow passive. That's gonna sting just a little bit, and CFO,
And the Baron is 12 seconds away.
full control
boy, that
of
death
the
timer.
map and the game. It's rough. It's rough, Pyra. But you can see that for Beyond Gaming, they are still having their moments. Clean engage onto Shun, clean follow-up. It's just they don't have the damage to be able to take advantage of that small pick. But here's another
Look at
pick
this.
possible.
Looking for it. Rest 3v1 while the rest of his team, actually we're watching the other caster team. We gotta go back to the game. What's going on? We gotta know. Rest is still living through this one, but the Baron is taken. He's staying alive.
Minji.
Even finding Minji, they're dumping all the damage into him, and he must surely go down, but he nearly takes Minji with him. Look at those shields. Look at those heals. There's nothing they can do. He's an absolute juggernaut. He's a raid boss, and he finally dies. But look at the
Base
base
for
Nightstar.
Aatrox! Base for Aatrox! The classic exchange! I don't see it a whole lot, but here we go. BYG do manage to secure the kill onto Rest eventually, and now they do have a numbers advantage. It's just that they've used so many of their tools to finish off that kill. They only have one ultimate available. They need to stall for time. And thankfully, because of the numbers advantage, it will slow CFO down.
Oh boy. But it's Elder. It's Elder in 30. Nightstar, it feels like even when Beyond win the battle, they're losing the war. Slowly but surely. I mean, it took almost all their team to take down Rest. And Rest is building a GA.
Yep. And it also shows you that even though they do have a little bit of heal cut, the heal cut, remember, has been nerfed. Also in part because healing in general has been nerfed.
Oh boy.
But with the power of Ocean and Gore Drinker and Spirit Visage, that's a lot of sustain. And this is just going to be
by their powers combined.
CFO just stalling things out because
it's a bait!
They,
It's
they
a
can
bait!
play
They're
both
going for the
ends.
two-man backdoor! They're going for it right now. Likai's the only one that can hold for the time being. They're just going to split focus. And they know that they can use
wall
the
has
Reaper's
gone
Wall to
down
go
as
right back
well.
onto the base. It's the double bait! It was the double bait!
Wall taken down, comes down to this flip, but even then they might just lose too much in the base.
Okay, the dragon
Minji
does start to
engaged,
get reset.
he's
They're
picked
actually looking
off.
for picks. Almost a little bit too many things. Minji is going to get taken down by Shun. Meanwhile, Kino is surely going to fall as well. Buys a handful of seconds for himself on this stun, but that Aatrox in the World Ender. It is the end of Beyond Gaming's world in game number 1. They're still going to keep their focus split as they pick up Elder, but it's just an all-you-can-eat buffet here, Nightstar. And guess what? CTBC Bank is paying for the bills, as it looks like CFO are going to close this one out. The last Nexus turret is going to fall down. The last-ditch effort from Beyond Gaming. They find Shun, but they can't take him down. Finally, Likai gets the tack sweep to end it all, but they lose their base in exchange, and the rest of Beyond Gaming are going to fall. 32 minutes on the clock, and what an opening volley in this Battle of the Bank.
CFO come out swinging in game number 1. Coming out with the Draven pick, playing around the Draven pick, but also playing around Gemini. This game has been much different from all the other Mega Bank Beyond Gaming games before, against JTeam, against DCG, where Husha was able to establish presence. He was the one able to go into the enemy jungle and really zone off the enemy jungler. In this game, it was all CFO all the time, and without Husha, these lanes are going to suffer a lot more.
Yeah, he's so relied upon by this Beyond Gaming squad to get them through the early game that when he is confined to his own jungle, you can see the differences night and day. And this is what happens when CFO push in just about all 3 lanes and use Mission to get the roams. Yes, they were held from getting first blood, as we have Nightstar on cam back. Yeah, like this was a 17.5-minute first blood Nightstar, but you wouldn't know it looking at the game end because CFO, it didn't matter if they got the kills. They got every objective in this game, did not give up a single neutral the entire time. And there were many of them. They just had so much of a lead, a buffer built, and this is one of those games where you kind of bless your RNG on getting an Ocean Drake, weirdly enough, because it gives you so much sustain that the other team has to actually build into it.
Yeah, and this game in particular shows sort of why, even though scaling comps are good, scaling comps are a lot nerfed on this current patch and beyond because of how much more influence early dragons do have. And because the role were 2 combat dragons, that gave them such a sizable advantage, especially on that third dragon fight, on top of the fact they were already so far ahead in gold. So even though BYG, they come to the fight, they feel like they're, you know, this is their best opportunity. They've hit their mythic spikes and, you know, they have all that wombo potential. Doesn't come to fruition because of the extra stats, because of that extra gold lead. So for the side of CFO, this has to be the trend continuing forward. And for BYG, the changes have to come from the 80 carry and the mid lane position, because the Orianna and the Zeri just take too long to ramp up, and you can have one, but you can't have both.
And that's the issue right now for Megabank Beyond Gaming. It does feel like the Zeri has been used as a bit of a bait by teams like CFO that are more than happy to just let the other team get it, knowing that they can win the game early. The Draven now has to be considered as a ban, as it was, I believe, in the PSG series. And at the same time, this might start to expose a bit of the mid lane champion pool issues that we know Minji to have. He's much more at home on these assassin champions. We've seen him on Akali, on LeBlanc. He can still get it going, and he can definitely start to set up a snowball up against Mission, but you have to build a comp that does that. If you build scaling every which way in the map, except out of the jungle, it's not surprising that you get stomped into the ground by the wallet of CFO. Let's take a look at this fight around the ocean, because it was just a brilliant setup from Koala, the max range hook, and they just lined him up to knock him down. I believe this was first blood.
Yep. First blood and second blood, right? Back to back. And it goes on to Shun. And after that, yes, Shun ends up dying a whole lot, but because of those 2 kills, he demands all that extra attention, right? Because he's so fed. So they have to overforce these all-in plays onto the Draven. And because of that, there's just no attention left for to keep track of rest. And rest on this Aatrox, having the Ocean Soul, having the Gore Drinker, having the Spirit Visage, just augments his healing to an unreal amount that he just face tanks everyone.
Yeah, I love this fight because it kind of showcases how far CFO.
Look at that Gore Drinker.
They lose the Draven. Yeah, they lose the Draven, and Rest is like, it's fine, guys. I'm a raid boss. Gemini, you might as well just finish the dragon. I got this. And then he did. He did.
That was disturbing. Rest Gore Drinker from 30% back up to like 80%. It was unreal, and on top of the... Yes.
Do you remember when Gore Drinker was nerfed and everyone's like, oh, it's a terrible item now? Yeah, we're right back to square one.
Yeah. I mean, Gore Drinker was definitely one of those items that it's very hard to balance, because there's also been instances where Gore Drinker Graves also existed at one point, because...
Oh god, I forgot all about that.
Yes, that did indeed exist. So, you know, headed into post-game, we'll see the damage numbers. Draven dropped off considerably, but I don't think it was necessarily the fault of Shun. it just really highlighted how much attention BYG put on him in these fights and left Rest and Mission out to sort of capitalize on that missed attention here. So once more highlighting that, hey, Rest gets a large damage percentage, also in part because of how much attention Shun demands in these team fights.
Shun has so much gravity because people see the way he lanes and the champions he plays like Draven, because he can become a monster. And his damage numbers weren't as impressive because of games like this. This is a textbook example of one team missing the forest for the trees. In this case, they go for Shun, they lock him down, but then the Aatrox and the Taliyah from Mission, which had a fantastic time setting up these plays with 2-3 member seismic shoves, allowing the setup, allowing the damage burst. And not only that, I want to give so much credit over to Koala, who has just been an absolute monster on this Nautilus, showing why it is such a must pick. But Rest absolutely earns this MVP. His lane was a little bit on the quieter side, but he did everything he needed to do. And when the kills started coming, they didn't stop coming because that Aatrox just didn't die outside the one time.
Almost 33% of his team's damage. That is unreal, coming in for the top lane position. And the big factor, it really was just all around CFO were playing so far forward and applying so much map pressure. You saw Mission every time he left the map. BYG had to account for that. They're playing very safe on the side lanes. Not just accounting for the fact that their side lanes were just weaker as champion wise, right? And having the Taliyah along with the Viego pick constantly threaten these sides has to be something that I think BYG will prioritize addressing the issue in that next draft.
We'll have to see if they can bounce back in game number 2. We'll be right back with that after this break.